Hello, welcome back to another week of Circle One. I'm your host, John Swiston.
Hey everybody, it is Dan Aberhart, also known by my rock and roll name of Tippy Wilson.
And I'm Steve Maxted over here. I do not have a rock and roll name, but I'm working on it.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining.
We're waiting with bated breath to hear what that rock and roll name is, Steven. Maybe me and Dan will brainstorm after the call. We'll come up with something good for you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Love it.
Yeah.
Alrighty, guys, I'm going to jump into things with just a brief intro to the show, to Circle One, for anybody who's joining us. We're just going to wait for a few viewers to join us in the Twitch chat room as well. Anybody joining us? Looks like we've got some folks in there. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll kind of take it slow out of the gates just to see if we can get that viewership built up. And as we do that, I'll go through a bit of an intro. So my name's John. I founded a company called Oxesis. We're a bit of a hybrid between a creative services firm and a technology services firm. And over the past 4 months, we've really been excited to throw our hat in the ring with some content creation. Very enthusiastic about what Dan is up to. Maybe he'll tell us a bit about his podcast. But, you know, we worked with some folks on our team, creative strategists in particular, who works with us. And when we went through the process of trying to figure out a name for the show, we really liked the idea of the name Square One. And at Oxesis, we have a bit of a thesis, the Oxesis thesis. And we like the name Square One, but Square One typically means to take a project and scrap it because it was bunk, it didn't work, you need something completely rebuilt from scratch. And so the show is Circle One, the future of work and leadership. And the idea around here is that we're experiencing a period of change. The way that working life is structured and the way that people lead and get work done in their profession is changing. But we don't necessarily need to scrap the entire project. There's a lot of great things there in our traditional conceptions of work and leadership. But wow, are we ever excited to see what the future holds. So not quite Square One. Maybe we just need to reimagine the shape. Circle One, the future of work and leadership. And so without further ado, we're going to pass it over to our guests here for a little bit of a dive into them, who they are and what they do. And so I'd like to turn it over to Dan. And Dan, would you please do us the honor of sharing with us a little bit of information about your background, your career, and what your day-to-day looks like?
Hey, thanks so much for having me on the show, John. And I'm excited to hear more about your company as we go along. You know, I think that for me and my brother in business together, having the right who's to work with is paramount, because essentially we're not that good at a whole bunch of different things. We're kind of good at a narrow set of activities, and finding the experts in their domain is kind of our speciality as we scale our companies. But I'm feeling really blessed in this COVID era to be in the business of environmentally friendly fertilizer. How's that for a headline?
Excellent.
Environmentally friendly fertilizer. That's about as sexy as it gets right now, and we're very proud of what we do. But just a brief background to my younger years. I grew up on the farm, Ladysburg, Saskatchewan. We're 1 mile from the Manitoba border, but in the Saskatchewan side. So I say power pole, not hydro pole. I say Vico, not chocolate milk, and I say bunny hug, not hoodie. So that's just my culture. Please respect it, Steve and John.
All right.
But yeah, I grew up on the farm with everything, every animal under the sun. 1,500 acre grain farm. Dad always worked off the farm, so I wasn't sure how that translated to a viable business. We'll talk about scale a little bit later. But I left the farm, you know, after graduating, and kind of a bit of a rock and roll lifestyle. But I got back into agriculture when my first son came along. Got into the retail side, sold John Deere sprayers for 13 years, and really that was my socialization into really working with producers as a group. And you know, my network and my social capital was actually a lot bigger than I ever knew. It accumulated over that, you know, decade plus, and all of a sudden it's like, holy doodle, I know a lot of people, and I don't know, they kind of seem to like me for whatever weird reason or whatever, but I helped, you know, get them John Deere. That's probably what was very likable about me. Like, if you help a farmer get a John Deere piece of equipment, it's like hero status, like, wow. But in 2013, I really had the itch. I wasn't an entrepreneur yet. I was an employee, and I come from an entrepreneurial background, and I wanted to build something. And I think what really attracted me to entrepreneurship is the concept of freedom. I told my brother when we were playing with some toys in the dirt way back in the day, like, hey, I'm going to be retired by the time I'm like 30. But I think what I really meant is, I wanted to be able to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. So talk about entrepreneurship, freedom of time, purpose, relationships, and money. And that's what we're endeavoring to do. So cut the ties to the corporate employee world in 2013 and took a dive. And it was basically immediately a slow motion train wreck. I had 2 years of school of hard knocks and entrepreneurship. It actually, the whole entrepreneurship journey I was trying to achieve then didn't come to fruition. But I washed out of it the other side in 2015. I was essentially unemployed and looked at going back into, the regular workforce. But strangely enough, how the universe works, we had an opportunity to distribute a really unique sulfur product to the market. And we had no idea how, I didn't really know much about fertilizer. I didn't really know how to distribute fertilizer, but we just started banging around and breaking stuff. And it's been a really fascinating journey. 5 years later, here we are. So we just, distribute this product in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, but we have over 30 retails that we work with in a bunch of capacities. We have spread over 1 million acres of this crazily sustainable, essentially recycled nutrient product. And our job is marketing the product. It's leadership within the dealer groups, acquiring more retailers to bring this to market, education agronomically of this product, logistics. The product's kind of unique in the way that's handled. But it's been an amazing journey. We're selling $6 to $8 million of fertilizer, and we bootstrap this whole thing. So we're really excited about the future because we think this is an amazing niche. And one of the things that I heard that it's really stuck with me that I've been using, thinking about the business, is the narrower your niche, the broader your audience. So we're kind of doubling down on, we help farmers be more profitable with sustainable fertilizer. We make using environmentally friendly fertilizer easy because we want producers to be sustainable, but we don't want to have them, they shouldn't have to give up price. They shouldn't have to give up logistics. They shouldn't have to give up agronomy. They shouldn't have to change who they are. They shouldn't have to, wear suspenders or not suspenders. The way you dress and the way you act and what tractor you drive. We don't want to change. We want to make it easy to be sustainable because the problem is there's so much pressure on producers to be sustainable. We want to make it like, hey, this is a no-brainer to do. Plus, we're recycling nutrients because the BioSol story, we're literally taking urban waste and creating compost that gets blended with oil field waste, which is elemental sulfur, 2 waste streams in massive amounts getting spread on top of the soil surface in high amounts to produce food. And some of the elements that go into the compost is physically organics. It's groceries. So you could have a loaf of bread thrown out, and 40% of the food produced, at the grocery store level is thrown out. You could have a loaf of bread that gets thrown into the compost that goes into this fertilizer that grows to grow wheat that goes back into the grocery store. So that story, we came out telling it, swinging hard. We're getting more right by the day on the whole sustainability thing, I think, and we're continuing to double down on that. The latest product that we're bringing to Canada was it's a foliar, a micronutrient foliar, the same kind of micronutrients soccer moms want in their Cheerios to feed their kids to grow up big and strong. Zinc, manganese, copper, sulfate, all that stuff. We use it in our biome. Well, this is made from recycled batteries. So if you take 1 10-liter jug of this micronutrient foliar, there's 250 recycled batteries in that, about $250 Canadian worth of batteries in this jug that's growing back on crops to grow food for many nations and many areas, even of the developed world, like the United States, are zinc deficient, and it's a direct correlation between zinc deficient soils and how tall your kids grow. It's pretty crazy. So whoa. Yeah, some crazy stories, a lot of fun telling them, and we've had a lot of fun doing the marketing side. So we've got this environmentally friendly fertilizer distribution company. My brother has a 15,000 acre grain farm that he's farming with my dad on the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border where I grew up. My brother also has an agronomy consulting and research company as well, and maybe some more announcements coming soon. But also on the media side, as you're well aware, John and Steve, I know you've listened to every single episode of the entire life of the podcast, Growing the Future. But
Yeah.
me and my brother started a podcast called Growing the Future just to give back to the community, and because we love having these conversations. We learn so much. We're already having these conversations, but the whole concept is just to put positive content out there, talking to industry experts. A little bit of the niche there is entrepreneurship because we love that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's been a great journey. So that's about a year and a half in, and we've had amazing guests. And one of the things I'm most excited about coming up here shortly, we'll be publishing the chat that my brother had with Les Henry. It's like a living legend. So the opportunity to sit down and pick somebody's brain like Les Henry and get his view on the universe, it's been an honor. So we're having a lot of fun with that, and it's been growing incrementally. And as you know, content marketing is the future, and it's lots of fun. So that's a little bit of a background on myself.
Awesome. And from a daily perspective, how do you spend most of your days? Like I think you mentioned off the top of the call, you spend a lot of time in meetings. You're out there servicing your clientele. How do you spend most of your time?
Well, we're actually quite structured as a company, and I think that's really important for scale. All of my team, we submit weekly planners as to what's going to be going on. And then every day we have like a power list of the top 5 things that we're going to commit to each other to tackle. And we share that with each other and we stroke those off the list. And I'm using things like time blocking to help me like zone in on what I'm doing. But, to be fair, my activities have changed quite a bit since the beginning of COVID. Mm-hmm. We were using a lot of these tools before, but now it's just more intensity, more frequency. So I'd say it's like 3/4 virtual versus it used to be 3/4 on the road. But we do everything from dealer meetings, webinars, a lot of social media, with all these different retailers. We're trying to provide the tools to them to be successful. Sometimes it's just hardcore sales. Sometimes we go right to the kitchen table with the producer and help, demonstrate how that's done. But I especially found in COVID, we were very fortunate, with our dealers being in action and having that personal touch and a direct, relationship with the producer. That's been essential to kind of keep our supply chain going here. But yeah, like 80% of my day is just meetings with people one after another, and a lot of delegation. Like that's what we've really focused on in the beginning, because we saw that opportunity is extremely scalable. Went to strategic coach after 1 year of business, and I recognize my mindset so far out there now versus, I guess, people that maybe wouldn't be ensconced into that culture, which I highly recommend for any entrepreneur. We're really about scaling the businesses. Like, I got 4 kids and this business is really busy. My brother's got 6 kids and he's running multiple companies, and we really want to, we want to do more things with more people who are living in their unique ability, that we're serving them in our unique ability. But definitely the part that I love the most is the marketing and communication, and sales and marketing is kind of my forte. But I'm telling you, like, there's a lot of days where I like go to log into our like corporate bank account, and I'm like, kind of swearing. I'm like, where's my login? Like, how can this be so hard? In like 2020, I can't even get into my bank account.
Yeah.
I'm like, somebody help me. I feel a lot of guilt, that I'm not stronger on the financial side. And yet, that is so hard for me to go over to that area of the business and contribute. Like, it's like, get away from the accounting. Like, don't touch the accounting. But there's, I've got a scaled business where vast amounts of it actually work quite well. But I love that. I love delegating, and I've got so many people helping me that are so good at what they do. It's really exciting. As soon as I met you, I'm like, how can I leverage this guy? What can he do for me in my business? What exactly can he do for me? And what's he going to charge, and what's he going to turn? No, what's he going to charge? If you create value, I don't, it's all good. But I'm just like, man, when I hear what you're doing, I'm like, great. I know another that someday I'm going to be like, well, why don't I call John? Why am I trying to do this myself? I can't do this myself. I got no time. I got no talent. Let's get John to do it.
Well, it seems like you definitely got some talent, and it seems like it must be a little more than just the John Deeres that keep people coming back to you.
Yeah, no, it's been an honor. It's been been very cool. So, anyways, happy to be here. Let's hear some about Steve. I want to hear more about
Awesome.
Steve.
Alrighty, Steve-O.
No, that's
Sorry.
no, that's awesome, Dan. And it's kind of funny. The first thing that without talking about myself right away, but I was just going to say how we kind of overlapped and met ourselves. And back to your comment about using batteries to be recycled, I think that was a pivotal point for me. I can't remember what town, what farm we were on. I want to say southern Manitoba, but I remember you mentioned batteries, and I'd like lightly seen you at that point at a couple events, and I'm like, okay, this guy's like out there, and I'll call it, that was the foundation of our relationship that we both didn't know maybe existed yet. And I remember you saying something about batteries, and I was just like, what did this guy just say? Like, they're putting batteries in this fertilizer product that he is selling, and that was just kind of a funny thing I just made a note of, and as we were chatting here,
Nice.
I kind of forgot until you said it again, right? It's one of those
Wild,
things.
eh?
Yeah.
That's super interesting.
You'll actually get a mild shock from the jug. Like, just, it's
Are you serious?
Safety issue. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's got a charge.
Sometimes lightning comes from your fingers when you're holding it.
Awesome.
The
Alrighty.
Well,
well, Steve, can you help us fill the audience in? Your background, your career, where you're at these days in your day-to-day a bit?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll start off with my background, and I think it's a pretty common mention as we're going through ag. It was kind of Dan's opener about being from grassroots, from the farm. And I find for myself, I'm not from the farm. I grew up working on farms. I was in early teenage years working on a very close family friend's farm, and that was my introduction to ag. But that wasn't the norm. I'd say it's more becoming more accepted. Not that it wasn't, but even going through ag, I kind of had a little bit of a white lie. We had an apple tree in our backyard as a kid, so I said I was from an orchard. My target audience for that was some very well, I'll call it like farm educated backgrounds, and questioned me a little bit, and I got away with that for about a week. And then I had to come clean and say I was from the city. This orchard of Linden Woods did not go that. And so that was kind of a funny joke. I'm not sure if many people even remember those comments from back in ag, but nonetheless, an ag background through formal education, started working on farms, was lucky enough to land opportunities with some chemical companies. To start off my career as a summer student, covered different areas in eastern Saskatchewan, southwest, and then western Manitoba. Worked for the Port of Churchill, moved grain around the world for a little bit. Had some really unique experiences working out of a cubicle, which I've found surprising because I'm definitely more of an on the road or kind of always be networking style of energy, I think, and we were just talking about that earlier. So then led me back to the chemical sales side of things. I spent some time in retail. I have personally done some e-commerce startups in terms of kind of having a different angle, and then got involved in some really cool ag tech startup as of most recent former employee. Some really great life learnings through that experience. I can't say enough about it. And then more recently moved to an amazing, happens to be locally based in terms of the founders of the organization, but doing international ag search now. So recruiting, search, however we want to identify that. And we have locations in the UK, which we pull from, and in Mexico as well, which is just such an impressive area. I'm learning. I'm not an expert as far as all the capacities that exist in Mexico to this day, but it's quite impressive, and I think maybe overlooked a little bit in terms of what we end up being more showcased to in terms of things on social media and our news as we see it here today. So we're doing some really exciting work here most recently, and kind of maybe blend this into the day-to-day now, but attending virtual ag shows, the most recent one, full show being complete, because there's one on the go right now, being Ag in Motion mid-July here in 2020, as we kind of date stamp it. But about a month ago was on a plant protein virtual show, which it was the first virtual show. We were actually supposed to be in attendance physically in Toronto, and the speakers were mainly from France, Germany, and the Netherlands. I feel like I've appropriately
Wow.
labeled those areas, but I'm learning how big and how different the farming techniques are there. I've known that for a while, even attending our egg shows and seeing companies, we'll call it, kind of start to grow and expand across the prairies and what they bring to the table. And it was just phenomenal in terms of what I learned about the plant protein industry there. So part of the day is business development for myself now in terms of growing this existing and new network in some capacities from where I've come from in the ag industry, because it's not as common for someone, I think, to move into the search side of things. Typically, I think people stay in search, and they search for a long time as a profession. And me coming from the ag industry offers a whole new angle on this, because I'll say it kind of point blankly, and I think for a lot of people, and maybe some correlation in the conversation as we go, is that ag lingo being brought into the conversation, whether that be into an urban setting or the corporate head office. It still gets facilitated right down to your, I'll call it like end customer, or back to the grassroots, the farm. Like how they speak is very important to how you have to communicate within your organization and bring that to the table at the end of the day. So so my day-to-day is a combination of networking and basically complementing that life learning mindset that I've kind of followed through in terms of different adventures, whether that be a physical challenge or a new startup that I want to take a path down. So it's a combination of those things, and it's been wildly interesting in terms of where that's taken me so far.
Awesome. With in regards to your day-to-day, you mentioned search. Would you mind, for the viewers at home, expanding on maybe a bit of what that day-to-day entails, the firm that you're with, and what search is? I know that I think often people see recruiters and stuff going on, but really, like, what are you focused on? What does search mean to you and the firm that you're with?
Absolutely, yeah. So the firm that I'm with here, very exciting. Waterford Global Inc. is the company I'm with. We do search differently. It's it's very exciting. It's that's our mission.
Cool. And is there any kind of level that you're focused on, or you like what type of roles are you focused on helping companies acquire talent for?
Oh, for sure. That's a great question. So we do a bit of an array. We do typically focus on our executive level search. So we're talking CEO, VP level to bring into organizations. If companies are bringing out or building out an entire team, we can help to a certain point with that. Our expertise is definitely looking at that executive level style search, and trying to think about how to describe this entirely without.
I think that does it, man. High level, executive level. Yeah.
We do it differently.
Trade secrets. I love it. So, can you find me someone that can read my financials?
We could probably do that, yeah.
and wears a bunny hug and knows the lingo.
Yes.
Yeah. There we go. See exactly what
the language.
Yeah. You got to know those. And that's same for many other industries as well, right? If you can't talk the talk, then you're a step behind.
Oh, what was I supposed to say to impress Dan on the show? Roll sevens or something? Steve was gonna fill me in on all the cool.
Yeah, I wanted to know more about that. Yeah.
Yeah. No. So that's I don't know if I've done enough here on the search, but it's quite interesting. And kind of hybriding where you had made the comment before, Dan, about your day going a lot more virtual. Every one of my meetings now is virtual. Normally, in the normal world, prior world, I'd be traveling internationally and be a jet setter, be on planes, red-eye style flights, going, shaking hands, and seeing people face to face. And it's been an interesting evolution while starting through a pandemic, and having to read even our body language on the call today is kind of hard, because for part of it we're looking at a screen. It's gone two-dimensional, whereas we're so used to the three. That thank goodness we have the technology to facilitate video. I couldn't imagine going through this with just verbal. It would, now going back, and that technology would be very frustrating to be on a conference call that was on a phone.
Yeah.
That was how conference calls for me were used to happen, and that was the norm. And now it's funny to think back of how that happened and how we used to do that. But I guess that's a sign of growth and change. So
totally. Well, we laid out a bit of a structure. We had some topics here, and given kind of where things are going with hearing a bit about you and your backgrounds, both Dan and Stephen seem to have touched on the marketing side of things. Dan, obviously, being a content producer and exploring this world of new media. Steve being, it's almost like you're a content producer yourself when you're logging into so many virtual meetings. And so maybe we can start off with topic 2 here, and we discussed this on the phone before today's show. Hello to anybody joining us on Twitch. Thanks so much. There's a few more viewers joining us. So if you guys have any questions for Dan and Steve, as they might relate to ag or anything to do with their careers, feel free to fire away in the chat. But that topic that we were going to save, but I think we should roll out now, is ag marketing, ag sales, trade shows. What does this all look like moving forwards? You mentioned some virtual presentations with people internationally. I know Dan's just gotten back from a road trip, and I want to know, are there any new opportunities here? Surely farmers appreciate meeting each other, meeting their reps and account executives, and probably, if they're anything like me, getting to touch and feel new machinery, especially jumping in cockpits. What does this new landscape look like? Are you seeing new things around the corner? Are you seeing new things happening now? And maybe I'll pass this right back to Steve, if that's okay. Steve, what do you think? What are you seeing from maybe that kind of marketing trade show world as it has to do with ag?
Yeah, for sure. And thanks for that. It's a really interesting topic, as we're just kind of witnessing the first Canadian, I think it's probably the first Canadian, and it's one of the largest traditionally outdoor shows that's currently going on. And I've been attending virtually this week, but a big part of it definitely is that touch, feel, experience. And I think some of that almost relates back to maybe other experiences that we've had to grow through already, or started to, with online shopping for products that we would normally have gone towards. I need to go to the store to pick this up, and it turns out you don't always have to do that. If you know your size and specs for jeans from a certain company, or pants, and you know that that's your fit, you haven't changed in size in any way, you're pretty confident to order that product again, as far as that goes. It's going to be different though when there's new products brought to market. Try not to name all the companies' names of videos I was on without leaving anyone out or making it seem that way, but this one really cool machinery company I was on a video for yesterday did a fantastic job on their webinar and showcasing some really great details on changing the ergonomics of their machine. And I think that's really important when we look at the age of the average farmer in Western Canada in general. And they did a really good job on that tech. But I find, like working with farmers for a number of years, there's different levels of like tech literacy, I'll call it. And some of that has to do with actually just your service provider in that area. Can you get that service out there on your phone to watch that YouTube video about how to, what this company was doing? And it's kind of interesting to see us move more towards that tech side, but there'll be challenges along with that if the farm is not hands-on, we'll call it kicking tires at these events, and be able to touch, see these things. How are we going to translate that in a way that is not a hard copy and can be very live? There's some very tech savvy operations out there, just like other businesses are. Some businesses unrelated to ag are very tech savvy versus others. They're both successful, but who's going to be more in the know as we go through this evolution of trade show? Because information's power, and that speed of that information, I think, is really what leads me to kind of question about how we get that out to everyone. And sure. I see Dan, you got a smirk. I feel like this is a perfect time to throw it your way. If am I reading your body language correctly in the video?
Well, yeah, I do have some thoughts on that, but I want to take it like way out there, given our audience. I want to give a shout out to all the gamers out there, because I happen to be a hardcore Red Dead Redemption 2 fan. I'm telling you, I spent a lot of time in the Wild West. I fell in love with the Wild West. And so to that, I think one of the big opportunities that we're going to have in the future, and it sounds really crazy out there, and it's probably going to take some time. I mean, if you ever seen like Ready Player One, I mean, it's a show about the future where everybody's basically online. But I do think there will be an opportunity where you might have a company retreat, or you might have, a presentation where it's like, just for fun, we kind of all, so to speak, we all get on our horses virtually, and head down to the saloon, and it immerses you in an experience that gives you probably a different dimension of communication, but it restores some of that natural body language that we're all looking to communicate a lot of things. And it was funny because on our last podcast with Tom Wolf, one of the things he said is, farmers can smell a bullshitter within like seconds, and it's just by virtue of your handshake. So if you don't have that handshake, I mean, that's so telling about the level of trust, and doing business is all about doing business with people that you know and that you like and that you trust. And so we use the medium of social media to reach out to people, and mediums like this, so they can get to know you if they're, consuming your content, so that you'll know and like us and trust us as people. And we're farmers too, and you get to know us through this medium. But we don't do any business online yet. We physically don't execute any business online, and we've looked at different platforms. We'd love to build the Amazon of retail. I mean, I've got all kinds of great ideas about hooking up artificial intelligence and sensors in the fields to immediately bring the groceries to the field that you need, like on demand. Like, hey, I need more zinc. Well, you want the sustainable option? ZM Grow. It comes from Finland on a boat, goes into your sprayer on a field, and goes into your kids' Cheerios. And it was automatic because the little robots, sensed what the crop needed. But bringing it down from that level, I mean, that's pretty futuristic. And shout out to all the gamers on the call. We're we're finding some advantages to the new world order and some disadvantages, and I think that's just like anything. It's pros and cons, and this is going to happen, but it's just been extremely accelerated. And I think it's back to the 80-20 rule. Like, we can do 80% of our business virtually, but the 20% will become more precious. So if for whatever reason, we meet in person, that's going to be like a social signal to us that, hey, we're going to do business. And you'll find out, but my handshake is extremely firm, by the way.
Mine too.
I just assume that, but I mean, until we meet, we can't know,
Yep.
It's going to be a warm, dry, firm handshake. But no, I mean, I'm enjoying it because personally, since the first time since we started Aberhart Ag Solutions, I'm not running around like a chicken with my head cut off and it's just a black hole. Like we talked about, I was on the road for the last 2 days, and I've probably seen, 120 producers or 150 producers in person, just giving presentations and going to field days and looking at plots. And, a couple things strike me. Like, first, the travel is so vigorous and expensive. Like, driving 1,500 kilometers in the last 2 days, like, I go back to the office, I was just pooped, and I guess I'm out of shape, but it's a real thing. And the cost, the environmental footprint, the time spent, the energy, just a black hole that you go into travel. Like, you can never replace that. But on the other hand, it seems more expedient. We have a bit more of an excuse to do more of the process of doing business with people virtually. And there's so many new good tools that you can pick up. Like, we've been using things like software like Descript for our podcasting. We've been using Loom to send people video links for like a 3-minute pitch deck.
Awesome.
Slidebeam helps you do the pitch decks almost automatically. We were using Zoom before everybody knew what Zoom was. Like, I love that bleeding edge of technology personally, and I know my brother has that gene because of all the crazy stuff he does on the farm. Like, he's really a global precision ag guru. And so, but I look at the virtual things and I just see it like, we shouldn't discount where the virtual world's at right now, because I mean, Ag in Motion, it was the first time for the first show of this, like, in the history of mankind. It's going to evolve, and people are going to learn what the value is. And it recently happened to me where I'm like, I got 10x the value out of this situation because I went to a seminar that was normally $3,000 US. You had to go in person to Nashville to do like 2 or 3 days in a workshop. And hey, there's nothing, I love, everybody's getting together afterwards and having some drinks and some food, networking, but they charge $1,000 for the seminar now. It was so easy to pull the trigger. I did 2 days basically at my standing desk. And when it was done at like 5 p.m., I went and got a nice ribeye from Superstore and Bob's Your Uncle. I mean, that was pretty good too. I didn't have to travel. I've seen my daughter, my 4-year-old daughter, more than ever. I mean, I was biking over there for lunch some days, and I'm like, what has happened to my life? Like, this is amazing. That was amazing gift to sleep in one's bed every night. But also looking forward to getting on a plane. I wanted to go to Nova Scotia here recently, to talk about to some retail as well. You got to quarantine for 2 weeks. Pretty hard to get off a plane and go see all your contacts and come back to Manitoba if that's the case. So we need to get back to a better level of doing business in person. But in the meantime, I think, we have to look at this in the context of history, and I think we've adapted to this COVID bug that faster than anybody could ever anticipated. When 100 years ago, we didn't even know what was happening. We were like smelling flowers or something to prevent the spread of the plague. I mean, this isn't that far ago in the human history.
Yeah, we've come a
we're
long
doing
way.
good. We're doing good. So
Awesome.
the virtual thing is going to come along, and it's going to be a bigger component of what we do. But it's made it so precious to get in person with people and sit down and get rid of all the distractions. Because and being on the road, you can't. It's just like I say, it's a black hole. Like, I didn't have cell phone reception. And we talk about new technology. I had supper with the producers. Like, I can't get anything on a tower. Like, I can't. All my phone calls are like up. Like, we tried to have a dry run for this. It was like I dropped it like 5 times, and I was just like, oh no, like, okay, this is actually where we still are.
Yeah.
But it'll come. I mean, the other point was, so this 60-year-old producer, I won't mention any names, but he's got a girlfriend in Sweden that he texts to every day. They don't even hardly talk anymore.
Yeah.
They just text, right? So he's texting all the time. But the other thing he was like, yep, they're supposed to come this week, and Elon Musk is like installing internet. Like, he was going to be on the Elon Musk network.
Yeah.
So technology is going to liberate everybody, but you gotta have such a good connection these days. I mean, not only with people in person via a really strong handshake, but through the internet. And producers need to get there, and that's a big issue.
Well, I do have a strong handshake, but you're giving me goosebumps a little bit talking about like how special that 20% is, how meaningful it will be when you do finally connect for that face to face with those people in your network, those people that you're talking with, determining whether you should do business with them.
If you get together with somebody now, it's important.
Yeah.
You're just not wasting either of your time. Like, it's a big deal. And it's a really big deal to meet in person.
It's nice. It's been really nice. We just opened up the offices ourselves after being shut for 4 months. I think we're doing 2 or 3 meetings in the office, and it's like everybody who has that in-person experience knows exactly as you're putting it. Like, it's not just that regular old, we're gonna have coffee and kick tires and shoot the breeze. It's like, we're here for a reason. We've both got a bit of buy-in. We're both interested, and it's whether it's on people who we collaborate, those people coming into the office, or people that we work with, or prospective clients. That's been I hadn't heard it put quite the way that you were putting it, the 80-20 thing, and like how special that has become and is continuing to become. So well put.
If you're getting together in person, it's like a Mad Max thing. It's like you had to traverse across the barren wasteland, fighting off other people for fuel and food to get here. It's like Mel Gibson, in the 80s.
Yeah.
That's with your mask.
I remember
on
coming back
maybe,
when COVID started. When we come back from Alberta when COVID started, it was pretty spooky, man. Like, going across the prairies, I was like, whoa! It was just there goes civilization.
Yeah. Pretty.
I know
weird.
that. Oh, sorry.
No, Steve.
No,
Thoughts?
I was just gonna say, like, I mean, like, maybe ahead of the time kind of thing. I'm going back to like my field rep days, like 7 years ago, and I remember I proposed to a farmer retail. I forget who I was servicing, but they were in a service area. Just to be clear, like, this technology would have been possible with where they were located, and I suggested maybe we FaceTime instead of me driving 2.5 hours to get to them, and they hung up on me. Called my manager.
Oh, it's a thing.
And said, what is this guy thinking? Tell him to get out here and look at this field. And I was more just offering, save me, maybe like us both time, but we weren't put in a position where we had to do that. And clearly I got my hand slapped, and I went up there. I mean, I would have done it anyways. But I was just thinking, maybe in my mindset, just kind of being like exploring new areas, FaceTime video calls were kind of new at the time. We could both have it on the phone. Yeah. That person could be in the field.
Well,
Well, to
I'm
that point though, I wanted to mention too, AgVisor Pro. Shout out to AgVisor Pro. We're just getting on the
yes.
platform. That's connecting,
Yeah,
shrinking time and space to bring people together. So,
totally.
it's just getting off the ground too. It's kind of like these virtual trade shows, but this is inevitable. This is the future. It's going to get easier than even making a phone call. But the magic of it's going to be expand your network. Like there's going to be a guy like John on there that you can network to make things happen, and have like a 15-minute call with John could
Yeah.
be pivotal to changing your life. So get
I
on AgVisor Pro today.
There you go.
I have been very curious about AgVisor Pro, and am I getting this right? Is this Rob Sykes?
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe can you tell the viewers at home maybe a little bit about AgVisor Pro? Because this is people. It'll be mostly people who aren't tuned into ag who are watching the show, and it's part of the purpose of the show is to hopefully allow people from different domains to synthesize ideas and hear, oh, there's this thing going on over in this other domain, and maybe ideas are sparked and opportunities open and people align. So would you mind just filling us in? And I would love a bit of a refresher on AgVisor Pro.
Love it. Well, hopefully Rob Sake will buy me a beer after I'm done
Awesome.
here. But big fan of Rob Sake. I mean, we work with a lot of former agri-training coaches, and actually Rob Sake is on my board of advisors, which is another entrepreneurial interesting topic for the farm. He's on the board of advisors. I think he's up in the plane looking at crops with Terry today.
Awesome.
I saw on his social media. But essentially, AgVisor Pro is the Uber of agricultural expertise communication, and so you can shrink time and space and connect with all kinds of experts that it's getting a lot of these experts are got a lot of knowledge, but they're getting older, and they don't you can only put them on the plane for so long, and so you can go on there and find experts in any given field. You can also talk to industry people if you have a specific question, but they've got a kind of a robust platform they've come up with that offers chat and audio and video, and it facilitates too, like a recorded session. So any of your chats with the experts, like if you talk to Tom Wolf about nozzles, who's on the platform, and you can't remember exactly what he said, you can go into archive and bring it back up and watch that. And so it's a really neat concept. It instantly expands your network. Like if you're here on the farm, it's such a solitary thing, and historically, people aren't wanting to ask for help. But what I think one of the elements or the nature of the communication on the platform is kind of unique too, because it's a paid endeavor to talk to the experts, but for like I think it's like $50 to $30 or something to talk to, like for 15 minutes, for example. Like there's different ratings of different experts and stuff. But you get on there and it's like 15 minutes and it's like, fix this. And I'm telling you, there's producers that have suffered for 3 days, under the crushing weight of like, I don't know how to turn this valve, or this thing isn't calibrated, or what do I do about this weed, or whatever. Like and there's millions of bucks on the line. It's just so much pressure on producers, and like they got to figure out 50 million things on the farm. I mean, I love the concept of getting the experts. We're just on there now. My brother's agronomy company's on there now. A lot of the industry experts that we know are on there now, and we want to talk to some more of them on the show and stuff. But I don't know, Steve, you might have some perspective on this kind of technology too.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I kind of former venture. Launching in Manitoba definitely had a flavor of that.
Right.
I think that this is definitely filling that niche of tech and personal touch though too, right? Where you get to speak with someone. It's not just but an AI tool can be really useful, but it's also AI tools, like when you go on different sites, are meant to answer only so many questions. They're getting much better, and some of them are frankly a little bit mysterious to me on how they seem to hold a conversation maybe even better than some people in some cases, if you're following kind of like that logic of websites where you go into like do banking, where like the AI thing pops up and says, do you have any,
the conversational chat, and
it takes you through a different thing there. But I think more importantly, to comment on where you were headed with that is, when I think back to that drive time, which we mentioned a few times being rural, like it's when you're thinking of these sales individuals over time, some of that travel, for being out of Winnipeg to Carmen is 45 minutes an hour if traffic's good and you don't get interrupted by Manitoba construction. Very specific shout out, but that hour of drive time could be maybe better spent getting in those 15-minute slots. And so it kind of becomes that conversation of quality versus quantity. So it's super nice to do in some ways, but what's the effective time that you're actually out there helping that person? Your total time to go there and just come back is 2 hours plus. If you're just doing that one call, ideally you're not doing that and pigeonholing yourself in that area. But
Yeah.
If this AgVisor Pro, as we kind of mentioned here, you're fitting in these different windows in different areas. Someone may be able to help someone in Swan River, Brandon, and Gimli, Manitoba within 45 minutes. Simply not possible.
Yeah.
If
Well,
you're that rep.
I'm super curious to hear, because it seems like the incentive is there, talking about the drive time, and then, talking about how complicated a farm can get and what's on the line. And if there's anything that I understand, being a bit of a layperson, not being super tuned into the farm, it's that ingenuity is a prerequisite from what I've understood. So I'm very curious. It's been so cool to hear your thoughts, and I'm very interested in diving a little bit deeper into what's going on in ag, and even Western Canadian ag, to be more specific. Hear things about companies like AgVisor and the play that Steve is working on, and even what you're doing and where you're thinking of taking things. I think you really got the flavor there, Dan, when you started talking really futuristic.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about something. Steve mentioned a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and that's ergonomics. And so I'm like envisioning a trade show from 2 years ago, or even Ag Days last year. You're on the floor, you're shaking hands, you're right in the whites of everyone's eyes, and you jump into a machine and you can feel the chair, and you can feel the stick, and you can get a sense of that. I think that's a cross domain, a cross industry difficulty right now, and how we're able to communicate the tactile. And farming alone probably has a million tactile elements, but the ergonomic element is one that I'm really curious about. And so, I guess I'm just curious to hear if you guys have any thoughts, ideas, or if there's anything that you've seen that's done a decent job of communicating the tactile virtually.
Do you want to take this one first? Or
Sure, yeah, I can start it off with, I guess, my
sure.
recent experience of, it was pretty obvious on this particular piece of machinery. It was a air seeder. So depending on the audience here, I'm just going to try to approach it from the best angle to describe. But springtime seeding, we have basically like three components in Dan. I don't know if I'm going to name all these right, so we would have to help me out here, but we have tractor, drill, and then seeding cart at the back, which typically also has fertilizer, which is carrying what you're putting into the ground at the very back of the machine. Historically, you fill these machines from the top, kind of like a grain silo style approach. You're dumping in different products, whether that be seed, fertilizer, other, into the top of these machines. And the neat piece of the ergonomics, which was really easy to see the benefit from, was this particular machine had you loading it from a much lower area. Previously, you're throwing this 50-pound bag, or now it's kind of changed given how they measure seed, but typically you throw it over your shoulder, you're climbing up a ladder and putting it in the top. Pretty standard. The way that this one is getting loaded now is from the side. For quite a few reasons, I see a benefit to that as an option to fill that component, because there'll typically be three, maybe less, two, or maybe more pieces on this cart that's involved here. If I've done an okay job, I'm so visual, I'm so used to grabbing a whiteboard.
I just pictured this, like it's such a vivid picture, Steve.
Yeah, so interesting.
Just picturing this farmer trying to get up this air cart. Oh.
Yeah, well, it's, I mean, been there, done that. I haven't done it enough to say it's an everyday event for my end, but
CrossFit for farmers here.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's a workout, but does it need to be that much? Because that takes a lot of energy out of your day. And I guess maybe I'm going to touch on a personal note here too, for both me and Dan, some of our side conversations. But after physically exerting yourself, working hard on the day, and I haven't lived this whole life, I don't want to talk like that either, but I've had experiences even this spring. I went out to a farm and helped set up their seeder and doing work for the day on a mixed farm, both grain and cattle, and I was gassed. And I'm used to doing a 5 a.m. workout most days, and if not a second workout in that day, at least a stretch at night some form of physical exercise, and you literally don't have that energy at the end of the day if you are physically exerting yourself. There are some comparisons to like the farm CrossFit that Dan made, carrying this stuff, but sometimes it's just pure, your energy is just drained from doing these things. And so I was looking at the setup of this cart, and I was like, wow, this could be a game changer. I mean, it might add, in my mind, I was already mapping out how this how this person's day, if I was working on the cedar, would go, making some assumptions, but this could add that energy to go to the gym and have a different style of workout. Not saying one's better than the other, because some days I think I prefer working hard and breaking a sweat shoveling versus going to the gym and lifting weights. So, but having the option to go do the other is not really possible if you're breaking your back, working all day, and your joints are sore and different things like that, regardless of age. You're just breaking your body down in a different way. So the ergonomics really cool to see that. And as mentioned earlier, I can't remember if this is on our pre-chat or not, but average age of the farmer in Canada, I believe it to be early 60s. If that's changed a bit or shifted with younger farmers being involved, I don't know where all those stats are derived from necessarily, because I know there's still family components that are bringing younger people onto farms. But if we're looking at what the stats say today, that those are the people, majority of them still on the farm primarily, or as the primary. So, is that a huge benefit to them? Can they farm for longer without breaking their body down?
Yeah. Well, I'm curious then, especially in that light, what this presentation that you saw that introduced the side loading ergonomic improvement, was that done through video? And then how, did they do a good job of getting that point across? And then even further, do you know if were there any 60-year-olds in the audience, and was there a conversation, or how did that go?
Yeah, no, great question. It ended up being broadcast on, I believe it was on a YouTube similar to how this will be showcased after we're done here on the live portion today. But it'll show you how many people were in the room at the time, and I believe there to be about 30 participants.
Cool.
I'm not sure on their age. You could see who they were. I didn't spend the time to look at that. My best guess is that there was a mix of demographics in there. From my experience, the people who are involved in tech and up to date on their either machines, phones, and otherwise are life learners. They're not necessarily pocketed into pardon me, a niche where everyone assumes, I think in many ways, that that's the 20-year-old or that 30-year-old, younger farmer, we'll call it. And that's not always the case from my experience. And Dan, you probably have the same complimenting comments, I think, to make, is that sometimes the people that are the most in touch with a lot of these things are actually quite experienced farms that know that they have to stay with that going through. Another industry that I would compare as a parallel in many ways for owning that growth of new tech and embracing it would be the medical industry. They're life learners, and they have to be, because there's always new tech and advancements coming out. I mean, it's a very different style of industry. One's feeding the world and one's saving the world, so to say. But
well, definitely been the impression that I got from the ag community that across the age ranges, everybody seems to be hardworking, ingenious, and ready to try all sorts of different things. So guys, we are 6 minutes away from 1 p.m. And maybe we'll just take a quick breather to ask you guys, how are you for time? Do you guys have a hard stop at 1 p.m. or if we go 5 or 10 over, how you doing? What's the feel?
I actually have another appointment.
Okay, then let's wind this down in 6 minutes. How's that sound? All right, let's get down into his next appointment on time.
Yeah.
Because
but I wanted to make a point on what Steve was saying there. Just first of all, in the trade shows, so I'm involved with the board at Ag Days, and we've one of our main missions has always been to attend trade shows, and I think this is a blip in history. I think we will, get that hydrochloroquine working or whatever they were talking about down south eventually. I'm just being facetious, but we're going to get out of this, and we got to go back to the in-person trade show. But all the capabilities that everybody's developing in the meantime are only going to serve all of us in so many ways. And it's you develop a capability and you can use it on all kinds of fronts. But one of the things that's really I wanted to share with especially your audience, being techie or gamers, or God bless you all. I love it. But we on our farm, when you talk about the cedar, we had a robot out there this spring, and it was seeding. And there's going to be a lot of, we're starting to work with artificial intelligence on the farm. It's going to figure out the most efficient way to seed the field with the least fuel used. And we didn't get into soil health today, and maybe we'll have an opportunity to come on and chat about it again sometime. But if we look at the 5 tenets of regenerative ag that I know a lot of urban people are crazy about, that can all be done by robots. I believe robots will physically be the solution to no tillage, to less compaction, to no synthetic herbicides or fertilizers, to intensive grazing, and to diversity of species. If you think about it, you drill down on that, it's little robots led by artificial intelligence that can do all that, that would make things yummy in a healthy way. That I believe there's some sort of future where, obviously urbanization continues on. We'll all live in nice, happy, clean centers that are safe for our families, but we'll be fed by a stronger combination of technology and nature than we ever could have imagined. And it's going to be a beautiful thing, because I think diversity in nature is a really cool thing, no matter who you are.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
If it's all right with you guys, I'm going to close us down then with a bit of rapid fire.
Sure.
Maybe you guys can just chime in with some quick answers to these questions. First, I'm curious, you mentioned robots. Are you able to disclose anything about the robots? Like, I've had my interest on this space for quite some time. Are you able to say anything about the technology or the type of robots that you're using? Or is it, if it's trade secrets, feel free to...
Oh no, it was all on Twitter. It was all over, and everybody's kind of familiar at this stage with the DOT.
Excellent.
And I love the DOT, and I wish the DOT success, but I personally believe the future is even smaller than that, like short circuit, small.
Cool.
Like come out of your back of your half ton small.
Awesome. I'll be very curious to see where they go. For any of the audiences, and we actually have a question from the audience. Maybe we'll keep this one rapid fire as well. But anybody in the audience who's curious about robotics, there's probably some of you guys, if you're interested in tech, check out DOT Technologies out of Saskatchewan, close to Regina. Very, very cool hardware. And I'm sure, Dan, you've been stood next to one of these things. Pretty neat to be in the presence
cool.
of, hey? A friend of ours, a creative strategist on the chat, asks, do you think these new digital ways of working are going to lower barriers and get more people wanting to engage in farming? That's a great question. What do you think?
I think so, because when I grew up, it wasn't very attractive to, for me growing up, I wasn't really attracted to farming on the principle that you had to be a general practitioner. Now, if you're somebody who loves playing video games and is kind of like a virtual person, there's a place for you on the farm to program this, this robot that's going to be running around. I mean, you'd be welcome. Like coding on the farm could be, a key to the future. And that 60-year-old farmer might just take his big dirty hand and pat you on the back and say, "Good job, son," and give you a bologna sandwich and, say thanks for coming out and making my farm so efficient and saving me money and time. Like, there's such a great place for everybody in agriculture, and as it gets more technologically advanced, that the opportunities are only going to increase, and it's the most amazing business, folks. It really is. So if you're thinking about getting into it,
cool.
Hey, contact me or Steve. I mean, we'd be happy to guide you. Well, Steve's a headhunter, so there you go.
Yeah.
He can give you a job like tomorrow.
Good crew. Yeah.
I've never heard a better lob up for kind of spiking down in volleyball right there in terms of an opportunity to jump into. Yeah. Give us a call. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I hope that you guys are maybe cool with that. I'm sure that you guys are personalities online a little bit, doing your LinkedIn and your Instagram and stuff like that. So, hopefully folks out there watching, if you're curious about learning more about Dan and Steve, and we've got Dan and Steve's blessing, seek them out.
Love to help.
Awesome.
Love to help out.
Awesome. All right. And
also, you probably use their talents.
Well, there's
if you know how to read a financial statement.
Well, nice. Hey, yeah. If you got a finance background, if you like robots, if you're thinking about getting into the farm as somebody who's maybe at the earlier stages of a career, I would say from what I've experienced, just I think touching ag from more of a recruitment perspective has been my experience. And oh my gosh, is there ever a lot of innovation going on in the ag space. So it was really cool to have you guys on the show to hear a bit more about your perspectives there. I do hope we can get 30 more seconds, because I always like to make sure we put work aside at least for 30 seconds and get to know each other just as humans. And so, Steve, what are you up to for the weekend? What's going on, bro?
The weekend here, well, unmentioned in my opener, but if anyone follows me on social media, I'm sure there'll be a comment about how much I bike. So I'm big into cycling in that community. So that'll be a part of my weekend here. I have a couple of routes I do. I don't know, not sure on distances yet. Usually I go out with the intent of doing the 30K ride and usually double or triple that. So I have that on the radar.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I'm just getting into it. I want to chat with you.
yeah. No, for sure. So I got that on my radar. Besides that, I keep some flexible time in there to try to wind down from the week and unplug a little bit as much as tech. We talked about it today and try to still maintain a little healthy space with that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And how about you, Dan? What's up for the weekend?
Well, I too love cycling, but I'm just getting into it. I'm not quite as hardcore, I don't think, as Steve, but I see his Strava and I'm like, damn, oh man, this guy is a killer. But I'm going to get there. But yeah, fitness and rest is a huge part of my life. But at 4:30, I'm going to pick up my 4-year-old daughter, and that's the biggest thing that I can do to, when you get presents, for like 48 hours at a time with like a 4-year-old, it helps with the week that you've had. And there's nothing more precious. I mean, I've been a dad at 23, and I'm a dad now again at 44, and it's so precious and it goes by very quick. But I'm kind of a nerd, outside of work. Like, I lead a pretty quiet life, and I do love to game, play guitar, read, a lot of, watch. I started watching the Mob in New York thing on Netflix last night. I mean, it's pretty good stuff. So we're living a great time for learning and consuming content. So that's all good. But yeah, that's kind of. What about you, John?
Awesome.
What are you doing this weekend?
The girlfriend and I are gonna head south to, I can't remember the name of the campground. Every few weeks he just picks a new campground that we haven't explored yet. So we're going to Buffalo Point, I think, and we're gonna spend the weekend out there and just unplug entirely. And if there's ever been a week where I could use it, this is one of them. So I take it they used to run the buffalo off the point there, or just a wild guess? Perhaps maybe I'll find the spot where that occurred and get to investigate for myself.
Get a buffalo skull. That would be cool.
Awesome. I'll do my best. Birch Point. She's actually our production assistant. She tells me when the audio's crap and when things aren't going well. Birch Point. Nice. We're going to. Excellent. So, gentlemen, if it's cool, I'm going to wind things down. We want to get Dan into that next meeting without too much delay. So I like to wind things up by just extending a huge thank you to both of you. Thank you so much for the insight, for sharing your knowledge and experiences. It's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you to all of our viewers at home watching. Thanks for the insightful question there at the end and for tuning in. You'll be able to check out this episode on YouTube after. And as always, thank you to all of our essential workers, frontline workers, our healthcare, and everybody out there working so hard to keep us safe. And I'll turn it over to you guys for any last words, and that's it.
Well, hey, it's been a huge honor to be on the show. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about agriculture, and I think reflective of your last question there too, like, there is so many opportunities in agriculture, and please do reach out to myself or Steve on that front, because I love to mentor and give back. So many people have done that for me who have gone ahead and been extremely successful, and those people I've found help us out of the goodness of their heart, just because their last refuge of fulfillment is giving back. I mean, they have all the money that they could want. I'm not there yet. I'm still working on the money part, but I love to give back. So if anybody has any questions about getting into the business or wants a job reading my financials, let me know.
Awesome.
I think I'll just wrap it up short and sweet here and just say thanks, Dan. Thanks for joining, and thanks, John, for putting us together on this episode here. It's been great to chat. I know that we only really reached like 1.5 of the 4 potential topics. That just shows, I think, how passionate we are about the ag industry and how in depth we can get without being too sidetracked. So this was fantastic. And thank you.
Awesome. Will be a good excuse to circle back for more. Thank you both so much for coming on, and hopefully we chat soon in the future. Take care.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Excellent.